there were a good number of questions that came in during the last round of Q&A that basically, well, they were about prayer and about the effectiveness of prayer. I mean, there was the different versions of the same question that was so, I guess, in essence, like, does prayer really move anything? Does prayer really change anything? And if not, what's the point? And I think it comes, I mean, that's a general question, but I think that's a question that gets raised, especially in the light of or the shadow of something like the shooting in Las Vegas. Like, anytime something like that happens, like the ease with which people at a distance will offer up thoughts and prayers, and what's the point? Like, what's the point of the thoughts and prayers? They didn't stop any bullets. They didn't stop, and now that the shooting is over, those thoughts and prayers aren't reversing the effects of those bullets. So what's the point of the thoughts and prayers? And I deeply resonate. You know, I think about a dear friend of mine whose daughter's been sick for a really long time, and she's a person of prayer. I mean, both of them are, but this friend of mine is a person. She prays all the time. She prays for her daughter all the time, and it hasn't moved the needle at all. I think about another friend of mine whose cancer has stolen a lot of his life, and the treatment for that cancer has also stolen parts of his life. And and more personally, I think about the days I spent after finding my dad after his first suicide attempt. I spent the night on the floor in the hospital, several nights. And when I wasn't asleep, I was awake and I was praying that he wouldn't find a way to end his own life, and he eventually did. So what was the point of all that? Now, none of this is to say that I haven't seen crazy stuff happen in relationship to prayer. Like, I have, but I've seen crazy stuff happen in relationship to prayer. But those are exceptions, right? I mean, those are the exceptions. And it's one of the distinctives of the miraculous is that it's an exception to the natural pattern. It's an exception to the natural rule. Like, the minute we're talking about, like, well, it happens this way every time, we're not talking about the miraculous. And that's part of what bad religion does. Part of what bad religion does is it takes an exception and wants to set expectations from that exception, and it leaves us, like, deeply disappointed. So a lot of what I come to when it comes to the practice and effectiveness of prayer, I've come to by way of disappointment, of hoping and expecting certain things regularly and not having them happen, not seeing them. That's one thought. The other thought is this, maybe in a more positive direction. When Scott Erickson and I put together the prayer book almost a couple years ago, you know, the heart of the prayer book is this idea that I pray because I'm human and not because I'm religious. The other way to say that is I pray because it's in me and not because it's particularly effective. In other words, another thing that bad religion does is it makes everything about humanity about utilitarian. Like, bad religion ultimately ends up being utilitarian in some way, shape, or form. Either I'm gonna, like, get to heaven, and this is the way I'm gonna get to heaven, or I'm gonna get certain things done in life. It's the use thing. Like, how does this affect my life? How does this move? As opposed to the question, which is a good religion question, who am I? Like, that's the question at the heart of good religion. It's an identity question rather than an effectiveness question. It's not utilitarian, it's human. It's about who I am as a person. So I'll start where I'm ending and say I pray because it's in me. I pray because I'm human and not because it's effective. Like, I have this desire and expectation, I guess, this hope, this want for something like justice. It's a hunger. Like, I want to see things set straight. And it's a hunger that has, like, no sufficient or satisfying landing place anywhere in the world in which I live. Like, is there justice on any corner in America or in the world? Like, no. So that draws me out of the world in which I live, and I redirect that hope, that desire in me, like, well, there's got to be something. There has to be something that satisfies this desire and that leads me to a place of prayer. Or, like, I'm deeply thankful, and I'm generally thankful. But I don't want to just be generally thankful and have some general thanks. I want to direct that thanks. I want to make it a thank you. And so I direct that thanks, and then I move towards prayer. In other words, I pray because it's in me, because I'm human, and not necessarily because it's effective. Is it effective? Do you think the mountains move? Sure, sometimes, maybe, I guess, at times, yeah. But that's not why I show up. I show up because it's in me to do. I show up because I'm human. I pray because I'm human. Effectiveness is a secondary consideration.